Alright everybody, this is a quick video about the aftercooler that I've kind of prototyped here for my Cobalt 60 gallon compressor. Basically what an aftercooler is that when air comes out of a compressor, normally it goes from the compressor into the tank. The air is normally pretty warm and it's carrying quite a bit of moisture. So what happens to that moisture is it goes into your tank. And since the tank is normally they're made out of steel, that can cause a lot of rust. So what I've done is I've kind of prototyped here is I removed the pipe that goes from the compressor to the tank, and I have this flexible hose here. And again, this is kind of just a prototype, so I plan on redoing all of this. But from the flexible hose, it goes up into these radiators. And actually it's a radiator, not radiators. It's just one. But on the back there's some fans. And the fans are tied into this switch here. So this is 220, so what I did is I just tied the fan into one leg off the switch and then the neutral. It is a little bit unbalanced, but it's only off by maybe, I think it's a little bit more than half of an amp, so it shouldn't cause any problems. So anyways, after the hot moist air goes up here, the radiator has air blowing through it and it cools it off. And then the air comes out of the radiator, it runs through this coil of copper. And from the copper coil, it goes into this. And this is actually a water, oil, and particle separator. I got this at like a surplus place. And essentially what happens is the air comes through here and it gets swirled around through this little filter thing. And when I run it, you'll see the water kind of collects on the side and then runs down. And then the air goes through this one, and this one is meant to collect like particles. Then what happens is mostly cool air, cool dry air comes through here and goes into the tank. So what I'm going to do is I've emptied my tank. The gauge here shows a little bit less than 60 psi, but it's actually empty. There's a little bend in the plate back there that keeps the needle from fully going down to zero. I guess that's what happens when you buy from the big box stores. Anyways, I have a infrared thermometer here, so I'm going to take some readings as we go along and fill up the tank, and it's going to fill up to 150 psi. So let's just take a reading of the tank right now. So it's around 56 degrees. So we'll periodically take a reading here. Maybe I'll take a reading here because this is a concern point that I have, because this thing gets really hot. It's probably like 300 degrees. And we'll take a reading up here. So let's see what that is right now. That's showing about 60 degrees. And at the top, probably about the same. And then what we'll also do is we'll collect the water that comes out of this. After the pump goes off, once it reaches 150 psi, the air that goes from this pump all the way up through the system to about here is purged. And once that is purged, you'll see some water spray out, so I'll attempt to collect that. So let me put some earmuffs on, and I'll get this thing running, and I'll show how it works. Alright, so here I am checking the temperature, and initially this is around 67 degrees, and you'll see it climb as we keep going. And here at the bottom of the radiator is about 132 degrees, and then the top is about 70. Can't really see that. And this one's already climbed to about 130 degrees. Here you can see some of the water vapor starting to collect. There's not as much this time as I got before, but it's okay. Tank around 63 degrees, so that's risen a little bit. This one looks like it's up to about 185, so that's risen. 199, 79 degrees. Back to the water vapor, you can see more water vapor collecting. Here I am taking the temperature of the head. It's at about 180 degrees. This one's up to about 200 something. It was kind of hard to keep the laser thing pointed right at the proper spot. This one's up to 180, 190, depending on where I put it. After all, there is air flowing through there. Back at the tank, 72 degrees, so it's risen a little bit. This one's probably going to be well over 200, 255, 257. And back at the top, that's 250 it looked like. In the 80s. You can see the fan spinning. Don't know why I showed that. And there's more water being collected. So it's significant. You will see that when I clear the water, there's not that much that comes out, but over time it would build up. Here we are, we're pushing like almost 300 degrees. Tank is still at 72 degrees. Now we're at 275 degrees up there. Almost 300 degrees. Now I don't know if you can tell, but that hose there is going to start. It just smokes a little bit, and I'm really concerned about it. I'm thinking that one day that hose is going to probably split. I don't think it's rated to get that warm. I think at the end it gets to be about 300 something degrees. Here we are at 260-ish, depending on where I pointed exactly. 80 something degrees. So yeah, I am concerned about that hose eventually splitting. That's why I probably am going to get copper fittings and try to hard pipe it all. So here we're almost at 150 psi, so it's going to shut off soon. There I'm trying to show smoke, but I don't really think the camera's picking it up. But there's a little bit of smoke that comes off of that hose. So one day I'm sure that thing's going to blow. It's going to tear or maybe even burst, I don't know. Okay, so the air compressor is done, and it actually didn't take that much water out. I've done this once before, and it took about 13 or 14 milliliters out, which was a lot more than what you can see in there. So I'm not really sure. Maybe it's drier in here now. I do have a dehumidifier that runs down here, but in any event, you saw the air temperature here. Let's just take one more reading. Let's see. It looks like, depending on what angle I put it at, it's like 274 to 260. So I saw it go up to maybe 300 degrees, and I don't know if you could see it, but this hose was actually smoking a little bit, and it's done that a few times. This is one of my concerns, is that I don't know what the rating is of this hose, what temperature. It's actually pretty flimsy now because it's soft. But again, this is just a prototype. I eventually want to hard pipe it from here all the way up. The problem is that this radiator has like the hose barbs. You have to use these little clamps on. So I'm not sure how I'm going to transition from rubber or whatever kind of hose or hard pipe to those barbs. And then this coil here, I'll probably wind up just trying to hard pipe that up to the top of the radiator. Some of the things that I need to change are, when I put this together, I really wasn't thinking. So I have the radiator above the head of the cylinder on the compressor. So my thinking is, if there's any condensation in this radiator, is it going to fall down here into the compressor? Probably, and that's probably not a good thing. So I probably need to maybe put all of this stuff, the radiator and this thing right here, move that down below so that it directs any kind of water that's collecting in the pipe to kind of fall and not go into the tank or the compressor. So let's take one final reading of the tank. So it went up a little bit. It's at about 72 degrees. What I'm going to do now is let this tank sit for maybe an hour. My hope is that any condensation in the tank will run down the sides, and then from there I'm going to go underneath and I'm going to put a piece of white printer paper underneath and bleed it for a few seconds and see how much water comes out. Like I said, when I've done this before, I had a lot more water than that. But in any event, that's water that's not going in my tank. And if you think about, you know, how much that could add up over, 30, 40, 50 fills, that can be quite a bit. So we'll be back in about an hour. Okay, so I'm back. I actually let the tank sit overnight and cool, so let's check the temperature. So it's 56 degrees, which is what I think it was when we started. So what I did is I have a piece of paper, and I'm going to go under here, and you can see some rust stains from where I have bled it before I put the aftercooler in. What I'm going to do is put this piece of paper underneath, and I'm going to open up the valve and see what happens. So let me try to set the camera up here. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that or not. Let me open up the bleeder valve. Turn it the wrong way. It seems to be getting tighter. So there's a tiny little brown mark on the paper. I'm not sure how well you can make it out, but essentially I don't see any moisture in the tank. So looks like it's pretty successful. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment or question, and please click subscribe and share. Thanks a lot.